recording.
Ooh-wee.
What up, fam? We are back. Welcome back to another episode of the Peasant Party Podcast. I'm your host, Charlotte Warren. I didn't say good morning, good afternoon, good evening. It's afternoon. Or no, it's 5.
Yeah, we back.
So are you.
So, yeah. Oh, so am I. Hi.
What's good?
You know, I'm just fucking living. I'm just trying to get through this shit. How are you? How are you?
I pissed off a lot of artists on TikTok.
Oh my God. Okay. I pissed off some people on the internet today too. So that's why I'm like this right now. But
I made a TikTok saying that asking a first date, what's your favorite color, is a stupid fucking question. Because, like, so there's a whole bunch of TikToks where it's like, oh, like, and of course they call it, like, a talking stage, where it's like, oh, when you have a failed talking stage, and now you're back to what's your favorite color, and there's a whole bunch of, like, it's like a meme, and, like, so I made a video where I'm like, yeah, your problem isn't that dating is terrible and boring, because they're like, oh, dating sucks, it's always, what's your favorite color? I'm like, the problem is you're asking stupid fucking questions. Why are you asking people, what's your favorite color? It's a dumb question. And then, of course, there's people commenting, and they're like, you can learn a lot about a person from their favorite color. Because I was like, well, where do you go from here? It's like, what's your favorite color? Red. Okay, like, I like red too. Like, that's dumb. So I'm like, it's a dumb question. People are like, well, you can learn a lot about a person from their favorite color. If they say it's purple, that says a lot. And of course, like, people coming in and
come on.
If you're an artist, this matters a lot. Like,
okay, yes, I was gonna say I love this question, but it's like a flirty question for me, and it's after we've already been like talking for a while. And if they're like, oh, my favorite color is red, I'm like, wrong, that's wrong. You need to be more specific, like narrow it down, and then we talk colors and which colors are like the most beautiful and represent. Like, you can make this a really flirty topic.
Well, to me, you can't, because I don't care that much about colors.
That's so I think how you respond to that question.
If you're asking what's your favorite color, you ran out of ideas.
Depends how you're asking it.
Okay, you're
if
right.
You're sitting
Touché.
across
I am wrong. I'm a big stick in the mud. And then, of course, people are spelling color as COLOUR, and I'm telling them that they're spelling it wrong. And that's not a word. I don't know what a color is.
Okay.
And then they're like, well, it's people in England. I'm like, oh yeah, we're gonna go there. You want me to make fun of England?
Colors.
Color is not a word. Spell it the right way.
Okay, but just on that topic, I guess. So it's like people are saying that dating topics, like going into dating when you're like meeting someone and asking them questions, it just feels like the same old spiel.
Yeah, and that's kind of the meme of it. But it's like, if you go in and you're asking the same person the same questions over and over, it's going to feel repetitive. Like, if you're just picking like stock questions versus like coming up with something that might be like specific to them, like, yeah, dating's gonna suck. Or if you're like, if you start at like a question like that, it's like, take it somewhere else and ask layered questions. Don't go like, what are your favorite blah blah blahs? It's like, then it's gonna feel repetitive.
Right. Yes. Yeah. I just like, I equate it to, because I'm in the service industry, I tattoo, and I mean, I have multiple clients a day, and I cannot tell you how many times I've been through the same spiel of like questions when people ask me. And yes, it gets redundant, but like, it's my job, so I put up with it or whatever. But I can't, when I go on a date with someone and they ask those like same questions that I'm getting all day long, it feels like work. It feels like I'm working. So I know that's a little different, but like, I think, yeah, if you're just asking what's your favorite color? Yeah. How many siblings do you have? I feel like, yeah, then it's going to feel like work. It's going to feel boring.
Yeah.
But you can get something out of everybody.
I know. I just think maybe I just don't care about colors that much. Like, I'm just like, probably black, like my soul, like, moving on.
What's your favorite thing that, like, do you like it when men go deep with you real quick? Like,
no.
Are you intense? You're not?
No.
Oh, what? I love that shit. Okay. How do you prefer, like, the conversation to steer in a first date?
Start somewhere and then just go layered from there. Like, when someone starts deep, it's like, that's a little too, like, it's just that's where false intimacy comes from. No, I'm just like, I'm also like normal stuff. Like, what do you do? Like, what do your friends do? What do you do? Like, okay, like, and then I layer from there. I don't do like, what's your favorite blah, blah, blah. Like, a lot of times, like, and it's gonna, like, now I'm gonna say, like, asking, like, what'd you get into this weekend? And people are like, that's your question. That's your better question. But a lot of times it's like, you just go from there. Or it's like, oh, where do you work? Like, I know someone who works there. Like, a lot of like shit like that.
Yeah.
And then you just go from there.
See, I try to do that where I start light, but it always goes very quickly into like, so what was your childhood like? because people, I don't know, people want to talk, like, I want to talk about that stuff, like who I was before I met this person, really.
Oh, totally.
I don't know. When I meet someone, I go into it understanding that they have had like just as rich and complex of a life as I've had up till this point. And I do that because I feel like I have dated men who for some reason in their head believe that like I only started existing when they met me, you know, that like cannot acknowledge that I have like my entire life's like past experiences.
Yeah.
So I try to like go into it understanding like how different and complex this person must be and like how much they must have grown. So I think, yeah, I don't know. I feel like you just have to go into it like understanding that there's a lot to be learned from this person.
Yeah.
You just have to like
Peel back
push
the layers.
the right buttons, I guess. Yeah.
Ogres have layers.
Ogres have layers.
Wait, who'd you piss off on the internet?
Oh, it was just some Israel-Palestine shit.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. No, it was nothing.
Yeah.
Nothing dating related, unfortunately. I just was piping off because I be doing that. I'm kind of a noisy internet person, honestly.
Yeah.
And I'm realizing, like, I wish I wasn't sometimes, but also I'm like, yeah, no, you know what? I'm definitely like a born activist. Like, I'm definitely the type of person that's gonna speak up.
Yeah.
Like,
I speak up. I will always tell everybody it's if you're actively going on dates with someone, that's dating, not a talking stage, and I will ride hard for that.
And you will die on that hill.
I will die on that hill. I'm gonna die on
will
a
die
really
for that
dumb
country,
hill.
yeah.
I'm gonna die. No, they all live on stupid fucking idiot island. I made a whole
Okay.
video that was like, you guys all live on stupid fucking idiot island. It was a whole thing. Yeah, we'll jump into our quick hits.
Oh.
How much social? Okay. So we're talking today is the social media stalking episode, the cybersecurity episode, the digital footprint episode. So our questions are focused on that. So I guess we'll kick it off with how much, social media stalking and early dating.
Okay.
Do you do it? Thoughts on it? Go.
And at what point is it like dangerous or too much or like a runaway train? Because obviously it's a spectrum. It's a fine line between that. Me, I'm completely sane. Personally, not mentally ill at all. And I do a little stalking. Perfectly legal, nothing insane. But I do know a lot about a person if I am interested in them.
Yeah.
So,
What do you look? Where do you look?
dude, everywhere. Everywhere. I mean, okay, look. You well know that, like, when you meet somebody, if you're interested in them, you have to do a Google search. You have to.
Always.
I don't know if your listeners know you've had experiences with this in the past where, like, you've,
I've told the story.
Yeah. Had to look people up, and then you have been talking to them for a minute, and then you look them up, and you're like, oh, shit.
Yep.
A mugshot or whatever. And it's like,
Yeah.
oh, fuck. So that is for everyone's safety, of course. But from there, you know what? I'm going all the way through the tagged, and I'm going all the way through their pictures.
So are you pretty Instagram heavy?
Yes.
Got it.
Yes. And I am tapping on their pictures and seeing who's tagged and seeing what girls has tagged him in pictures. And I also gotta go through the followers a little bit. Just a quick scroll. Just a quick scroll. You open like who they're following and just give it a quick flip. And if it's like all like IG models, it's like,
Do you back away?
red flag. I mean, it depends. Depends what the vibe is. But yeah, I think it's safe to say that's not husband material.
Yeah.
If it's like all IG models, I've dated that type of dude and it sucks. It sucks.
Yeah. I feel like the types of guys I go for are never like that type. Like, Buddy was never like just like as a whole. Like, but I always like I stalk everybody. I like missed my calling to be in the CIA. I really think like if looking back, maybe I could have been. I love stalking.
But you smoked
people.
weed or whatever, so
I smoked too much weed in college. I did too many drugs. Yeah, whatever.
Yeah.
But like, yeah, I stalk everybody. So
and you're good at it.
I
and
can
you
find
always
anything.
have been too.
And that's not just a dating thing. It's like if I meet anybody, like when I do stuff with like TikTok people, like I meet somebody new from the internet, I look up that person. I find like there are people who go out like extreme lengths to like hide their last name and all this information about them. I find it not hard.
Not hard.
But like it's also just like I want to know who I'm dealing with, like, because you never know who's crazy. I never like hold it against anyone, and usually like if I'm at that point where I'm looking somebody up anyway, you probably aren't a walking red flag.
Okay.
When I was single, dating app matches, yes, absolutely, and like you would uncover stuff all the time.
Yeah.
And like for me, the big things I would look for would be like that they're not an axe murderer. Like it was all the safety stuff, and then just making sure things would check out. Like it'll sound dumb, but like I would go on like LinkedIn. Someone asked a question about LinkedIn. Like I'm somebody who's on LinkedIn a lot for work. Like it is second nature. Like people that are on TikTok that are like, LinkedIn is like, if your guys are gonna think you're looking up how much money you're making. It's like, do you know how LinkedIn works? Like everybody who has a job has LinkedIn, and everybody who thinks that it's a problem, people look people up on LinkedIn, don't understand LinkedIn. It's normal to look people up, but I look at it to make sure people actually like live in the city is what I would do. Because like so many times like people on Hinge would be like, oh, I'm just dropping through town. So like I would look at like LinkedIn. I would like look for weird stuff.
Okay, yeah.
I had one in the past where I found like a guy with a wedding picture on a Facebook thing from like a year prior, and I'm like, even if this is a divorced guy, this is too recent.
Yes.
So like stuff like that.
Facebook,
like,
always. You gotta see what's up on Facebook.
Mm-hmm.
It's weird over there.
Yeah. Call it boomer book.
Boomer book.
Yeah, it's all boomer shit.
I've definitely like found people's like old Twitters and gone through their old Twitters and their likes on Twitter from like 2015, just to be like,
People were feral on Twitter back in the day.
Interesting. But I feel weird admitting it because it sounds like stalking, but all that shit's public information.
That's the thing too. Like if you did something weird and the police wrote about it, like you made the news for doing something dumb, like
yes,
that's more their fault than yours, which is actually what happened from our first letter writer. I'll be the first mailbag. I have 3 letters that just like fall under this topic, so we're doing 3 letters today.
Okay.
I think one's quicker than the others. Okay. Not sure how to feel about a strange arrest in his younger days. I'm a 26-year-old woman living in LA, been on the apps, dating around, but haven't met my person. On Halloween, I met this guy at a party who was super hot and we made out. We exchanged numbers, had our first date last week. We have another plan for next. Yesterday, I was killing time and it occurred to me I hadn't looked up this guy just yet. It was honestly just a curiosity thing and I couldn't believe what I saw. 8 years ago, when he was 19, he was arrested for pulling the fire alarm in his college dorm. According to the news article, he took some LSD and barricaded himself in his room and assaulted the police who came to check on him. He was then arrested. The article is written very technically, so I'm not sure if this is just a funny story or it's a more serious ongoing issue. I really did like him, but I'm just not sure how I feel about this point. I hate how judgy I feel, but I can't unlearn this. I also don't think it will come up on its own if I continue to date him. So what do I do? Should I keep seeing him?
Damn, that is crazy. That's so hard to like. What would you do?
So I think there's like, because I do think like when she's like, oh, is it just a funny story? I think there's like 2 versions of this because it's like those articles are always written very technically. Like anytime there is like an article,
of course.
Like I think there's a version of this where it's like guy had too much fun and then he comes back in the dorm and everyone's like, hey, like what's up? It's still a serious thing, but it's like look at this fucking guy, like that kind of situation. And then
one would hope,
you would hope, but then there's another version of this where everyone crosses the street when they see him because they think he's like this crazy person.
Honestly, like people, I do know somebody from college who this like kind of happened to.
Really?
And she like did acid and then like jumped off a cliff or something. But she was never the same after that. And it was actually like part of an underlying issue for real. Mm-hmm. And so I think maybe that's too anecdotal, but like I probably wouldn't fuck with him anymore. Or like if you're gonna end things, bring that up and say why, or just ask about it, and then depending on his answer to that, like then break it off or don't. If he's like, oh yeah, if he explains it away and it like sounds pretty chill and you can maybe verify from like a friend or something, but I would ask him first and then decide.
See, I think like that's where it's like it's a fine line that can get kind of weird is like the like if you ask about it, like, what if it is because he's scary and weird? Like, he tried to assault police. Like, maybe he was on a bunch of drugs, but, like, because I think I've shared this story on the podcast before, like, a few episodes back, but, like, I had a situation where I'd gone on a first date with this guy. He, like, went by his middle name, which I don't think that's all that weird, but, like, learned on that first date, like, when he, like, showed his ID to, like, buy a drink, that he, like, went by his middle name. Took that name, like, punched it into Google, and then found out that he had been, like, on trial for rape. Like, after that date, like, between date 1 and 2, I was like, oh shit.
Yeah, there were a couple mugshots on there, weren't
there? Were multiple.
Like,
it was not just that. It was like, it was
like
not only that, but it was like
later,
something he was, like, convicted for, like,
violent assault or
yeah, going to taking an Uber to his ex-girlfriend's house, breaking in and beating up her and her new boyfriend. So, like, I found that, like, because I punched in the name, I was like, holy shit. And when, like, that was a situation where I opted to ghost. Like, I mean, that was one where it's like I was not on the fence. Like, it's like that was very clear, violence, like, beating up, like, women. Like,
yes.
Yeah, no, I was out. But, like, there was part of me because, like, we split, like, an Uber home when, like, the first, like, time I met him, where I was like, I don't want him, like, I just wanted there to be, like, this illusion of not rejecting him over this, or, like, I didn't want an explanation. I didn't want him to be like, wait, like,
right.
Maybe I'm making assumptions, but, like, kind of like, if this is a violent person and you, like, reveal to them, like, I am rejecting you because of this thing, like, are you going to get someone banging on your door and being like, you know, wait, like, let me explain, like,
right, especially if he, like, knew where you lived at that point.
Yeah, so it's like I would, like, because this is a tough one, because it's like there's one version of it where it's like it's 8 years ago and, like, he seemed normal enough now, and, like, people have crazy college stories and stuff.
Yeah,
but then there's, like, you kind of, like, have to think of, like, your cards, like, and I wonder if there's room to, like, look for, like, more information, or, like, kind of look through, like, social media at how he was, like, in those years. Like, is there some, and I hate the phrase social proof, because social proof gets used, like, when people talk about dating, be like, status and wealth and money, but it's like, what I mean by social proof is, like, is this a person with friends that seem normal and kind, or is he kind of like this lone wolf weirdo? Like, I think I would take that into account, like, and you're well within your rights. First off, don't feel judgy if you want to end things over this. Like, he did this thing, it ended up it got enough attention where it ended up in the news. Like, that is not your fault. Like, we have computers, like, we can look these things up, it's free. Like, most people do look people up, like, men do it to women, like, yeah,
for
like,
sure,
don't feel bad,
for sure,
and you have a right to be turned off. Like, I think if there's, like, kind of in your mind where it's like you're going back and forth, I think, like, if you're someone that just kind of, like, is, like, a people pleaser, like, don't feel guilty over walking away. But, like,
totally, it might be incredibly wise, especially if you are early in the game, and I think that's the best time to get out, right? Like, because the further that you get in your relationship with this man, the more attached to you he will be, and depending on mental stability, he will like, try to hold on to you or not let you leave, not let you go, you know? But I think if you're really early in it and somebody is, like, a stalker, is a little crazy or whatever, and you just kind of ghost them, give them the bare minimum information, and then nothing after that, like...
Yeah, I would say, like, just didn't feel a spark is always safe. Like, you never, like, it's usually not a lie. Like, something happened to that spark. You'd
say that didn't feel a spark.
I would say, hey, I don't see this working out. Like, and then I would be like, you know, I just didn't feel it. And that's true. Like, there are some tangible things that go into that, but like, you can give the non-answer to it. Like, I would, like, the ghosting thing, like, that was the last time I, like, ghosted somebody. Like, I think that is for safety. I would encourage against it, just because then, like, you can just, like, close the book on it a bit easier. But yeah, I also think you're in LA. Like, there's a bunch of other people in LA. There are other fish in the sea. You don't have to date the crazy dude.
Yeah. That's true.
Yeah.
You do not.
Yes. What about, okay, so kind of on the flip side, if you turn that whole situation around, have you ever had anybody that you've been on a date with, or you've been seeing, whatever, that, like, mention your own, like, digital footprint or, like, social media presence and asked you about it?
That's, like, so funny. No, but, well, maybe yes, but Bailey and I were just talking about this last night, where we will be talking to someone, and then, because we're, like, so connected on the internet, if somebody, like, knows who I am, they know who she is, and vice versa. But you'll be talking to a dude and he'll act like he has no idea who you are, and then he'll kind of, like, let something slip, like, oh yeah, I saw that on your story or whatever. And it's like, what the fuck? Like, we've been talking for how long, and you knew exactly who I was and I didn't know who you were. It's just kind of, it's scary. It's a little, and there's what are they, the parasocial boundary or whatever.
Parasocial relationships.
Parasocial relationships, fascinating, frankly. But yeah, and I, like, you know, I probably am guilty of something very, like, I follow a lot of people and celebrities and influencers and whatever. And so I have kind of almost that parasocial relationship. I almost wonder what I would do if I ran into like an influencer that I've followed for a while, but I didn't want to seem weird and creepy if I'm trying to like introduce myself on a peer level. I don't know.
It's funny too, because like when you listen to like people, like personalities, because I feel like the line is so blurred between like public figure and private person nowadays, with like everybody and their mother having a podcast and like
for sure, dude, and
like,
everybody's known, everybody's famous, everybody's, and I'm not saying I'm an influencer. So I'm very far from that, but
totally.
But like, yeah, I mean, somebody just around town, like there's kind of like Austin internet famous girlies, you know, like the Austin model girlies, like that everybody kind of knows about. And I've seen them out, and I'm like, fuck, what do I'm just nervous.
Yeah, it's like, and it's interesting because you're like, what do you do? Like, it's like you don't want to be weird, but like you also don't want to like pretend you don't know who they are. But
or
it's a weird thing.
Oh yeah, I think I've seen you before, or whatever. Yeah, it's a weird.
Yeah,
it's
like you like feel like you're
parasocial relationships are strange weird for everyone.
Very weird. Well, I got a letter from someone who is, I would say, like my friend on TikTok. Cool. Where'd it go? Yeah, so wait, where'd it go? Oh, I'm looking at last week's. Am I? Or no, wait, I'm looking at this week. Sorry. Okay, reading the letter.
Cool.
Okay. Quit. Dates keep making assumptions because of my TikToks. Hi, friend. Thought I'd write in with a quick question. I have a TikTok account with a small following, a little over 15K. I don't have a niche, but I do share funny stories, some of which include bad date stories. Whenever I've discussed dates, I describe the other person in a very generic way, no identifying information, and don't turn it into like a multi-part saga or anything. Aside from this, my content is skits, 90s or 2000s throwbacks, millennial versus Gen Z jokes, etc. Despite this, I had someone I really liked end things a few weeks in because he decided to Google me on a whim and my TikTok came up. I've never brought up my TikTok before. It's not a big part of my life, just a hobby to pass time. And he wasn't at all open to an explanation about what it was all about. He made a lot of assumptions. He said he's a private person who doesn't want to be a side character in someone's stories, and then he had a friend who got dragged through the mud on TikTok and didn't want that happening to him. I have never and would never do anything like that, but it was kind of a bummer. So it was kind of a bummer, but I respect his preferences. However, one thing that sort of left me confused with what to do next is when and how to bring up my TikTok account. It sucked to be several dates in and already excited about this guy when this was seemingly a deal breaker from the start. If it happened on date one, it would have saved me a lot of heartache. At the same time, I feel like bringing up my TikTok immediately doesn't exactly represent how I use it either. I feel like it sends the message that I'm some aspiring influencer or that my life revolves around social media. I enjoy having it, but I'm not one of those people. Is there a middle ground here, or am I just trying to have my cake and eat it too? I feel like my only options are either delete TikTok or go all in on TikTok.
That's crazy. Well, I feel like you can speak to this because you do dating content, but you do not talk about your personal.
No.
You have, I feel, a pretty hard rule.
Yeah.
No talking about dates because.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like now, I mean, the reason I'm comfortable talking about Buddy is because Buddy is on the internet. And so like, but if he wasn't, it would be like he would be a very elusive figure. I'm pretty sure. But yeah, like I was always very private about that. And part of that, it's not because I'm this great person who cares about every man I've ever dated's well-being. It's because I don't want people in my actual personal life to call me cringy. Like, I care so much about that. Like, I care so much about, like I just picture in group text being like, oh, look at this. Like, because I've had people, like, our friends from our personal life, like, or people that are maybe, like, looser connected where I bump into them. They're like, I listen to the podcast. I'm always hoping a funny story is going to come up. It's like, that. It's not that kind of podcast. Like, you're not going to hear that. Like,
but me, I'll tell them. I talk shit on the podcast all the time. I talk shit on my TikTok. I talk shit on my close friends. Listen, I'm sorry. I respect it. You're a stronger woman than I am, but
it's not for anybody. It's not because I'm a good person. It's because
you don't want it to bite you in the ass.
Well, it's like, yeah, I don't want to invite, but it's like, I don't want to invite anyone back in my life who's no longer in it. Like, I don't want to send the wrong message. Like, I have exes out there who are, you know, I wish them all the best, and I also hope at the same time that we never bump into each other again. I don't mean that in a bad way. I just mean it in like I have no reason to see any of them. I have no interest in it. I'm very happy with my life. I hope they are too. But like, I could totally, like, I think there are some exes out there where it's like they would hear something and be like, they'd either come and be like, oh, I better not, blah, 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 or they'd be like, oh, is this an invitation? No. So, like, that's, like, and maybe I'm assuming too much. I hope they do not care about me at all. But, like, beyond that, of course, it's, like, just people being like, oh, that's so cringy. Like, I remember when I first started doing TikTok, like, I would, like, see, and I wasn't even, like, on it making TikToks. Like, just, like, people where it's like, oh, I just got back from my date with, like, the restaurant owner, and they would, like, come up with a nickname for the dude, and I'm like, this isn't me. This isn't a thing I want to do when I was single.
Okay, yeah. Where they're, like, referring
Chronicles
to this
of my life,
character. Yeah,
like,
I think that can also just kind of fuck with your head a little bit if you are posting that, like, in between. I don't know. Maybe it's helpful. Maybe it fucks with your head. But like, if you're posting updates in between like real life dates with this person, and people are giving their feedback on it on the internet.
Well, it's also like the people watching that want entertainment. They want to be entertained. Like, they don't have your best interest in mind. Like,
you're exaggerating.
You're gonna start dating for the story, and like you're gonna be annoying. So like, I was like, I'm staying away from that. Like, even when I was single and going on dates, but like, there was definitely a period of time where I was like, I have this TikTok account where I talk about dating. I'm millennial, so I was like 28 or 29-ish at the time, and like, kind of guys in that age range, like, and older, like, who aren't on TikTok, which is most, would hear talks about dating on TikTok and be like, oh, fuck no, I'm out. Like, so it was a very interesting song and dance to have to do, like, which is why I think it was kind of nice to find Buddy through that app. Like, it was just kind of like, it was even like guys who, it wasn't even just like a guy who would like appreciate it or not care. It was like a guy who was like super into it and thought it was cool. So it was like very nice that I found that. Like, I would throw that out to this person. Like, it is an app where you can meet people. It's not just like all guys being like, my mom wonders why I'm single. Like, there's really cool dudes on that app.
But then on the other end of the spectrum,
like,
are the TikTok couples.
I was like, we're not doing that shit. Like,
TikTok, dude, that shit is it's like a social experiment. Watching like TikTok couples, there are so many on there where people are like, oh my god, you guys are the cutest couple, you never break up, blah 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 blah. And I watch that shit and I'm like, they're doing nice little favors for each other and filming it for content. Like, this is contrived. It feels so fake and like so over the top, like, we're so in love, and then you find out those are the couples that like break up or whatever.
You have to make like a little breakup announcement, like, guys, we decided we were loving, like, posting a joint statement. Fuck that. No.
It's so, yeah, I don't know, because then when do you have like real quiet moments with that person where you can have like a genuine conversation that, you know, because like, what if, you know, you say something wrong, you guys break up, and now they're spilling everything about you.
Yeah.
Oh, like, I'm guilty of this. I actually have done this. So
they have a platform. Like, I trust that if something blows up in my relationship, and I hope it doesn't. I love Buddy Pearson very much with all my heart.
Right. But you can trust like, each other. To be he wouldn't mature adults.
He wouldn't do something like that, and I wouldn't either. But like, yeah, like, that's a whole thing, and like, I could see a guy being like, oh, girl on TikTok, and just making that assumption, like, in the same way that, like, yeah, I would be like, oh, talking about dating on TikTok, people are like, oh, they just assume it's going to be one of those accounts. It's like, I've never have been. But like, I would say a good way to bring it up in a happy medium is like, I feel like a good thing that like happens on first dates is like, sometimes, like, it sounds silly, but like showing each other memes. Like, you know how it's like showing each other memes, or like, did you see this? Like, if there's a viral video that kind of relates to a conversation, like, oh, do you have this? And then like show it, and then, because I remember I'd be
so intimate, being like, wait, look at this thing on my phone.
But like and then be like, oh yeah, like if they're like, oh, a TikTok, or like be like, oh, are you on TikTok? And like, and then you can like ask them, and like, it's kind of funny because I think there are a lot of people who like lurk and watch it and think it's kind of funny, and then be like, I have a like kind of like a secret for you, like, I'm totally on it, and then also like, if your account isn't just like all date stories, it's like millennial stuff, like, I would be like, yeah, like, I just have fun with it. Like, something I would tell people too, and this is because it's true about me, is like, my actual day job is in digital marketing, and so like, knowing it from the back end, like, so I kind of would tell the story that like, I had it, and then I just was kind of fiddling with it, and then it blew up, and I have fun with it. It's kind of goofy. It's helped with my public speaking, and that was kind of the story I would tell. But it would come up because it would be like, it would come up organically, but I would make sure to do it early, like, I wasn't a big secret I would hide, but I also wouldn't be like, everyone watch my like put something on a dating app, be like, everyone come watch my TikToks.
Oh,
Like,
yeah, you're not
like,
promoting it. It's just
I think there's a way to frame it where it's
Oh my
like
God.
you're not like, I'm an aspiring influencer. Look at me. Like, don't refer to yourself as TikTok famous. Like, and this person won't. But like, yeah. Be like, yeah, you know, I fiddle with it. Like, and then if your story is like kind of like, it blew up. I made a video that was viral. It was kind of weird experience. Like, just tell it in a way that's self-aware. Like, I know it's kind of a wonky thing. Like, I know it's kind of weird. Like, just be self-awareness is huge. I feel like
for sure.
There's a happy medium, but there also are people that just won't understand. It's just how you bring it up.
My TikTok is like my video diary.
Like
I've been crying on there. I've been crying on TikTok for my phone in the car, talking about some shit. I'm always talking about some dumb bullshit on TikTok.
It's very insightful.
Thank you so much. But yeah, I would be horrified if a man found my TikTok. That shit is unhinged.
Yeah.
But I feel more comfortable talking there about stuff because it's like so much smaller of a platform for me.
Oh, totally.
I have like 20 followers.
Well, that's what happens a lot of times is people like make videos and they think nobody's watching and then one blows up. They're like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
Like you have no idea how crazy the app is. So if you like look somebody up on the internet, what are the rules around like telling them that what you found in a way that's like fun? Like you didn't find anything crazy. You look this person up, maybe you find out about like what they do for work or like something they did for fun. Like, do you keep that to yourself? You look up the Instagram, oh my gosh, it looks like they're into the same band that I am. Do you hold that to your chest and just strategically ask questions about what's your favorite band?
I don't know, because I almost even feel weird like going on a Hinge date and bringing anything up from their profile. I feel like almost when you go on a Hinge date, you have to pretend like it's not a Hinge date.
Yeah.
You have to pretend like Hinge doesn't, like, you don't even want to mention it.
Pretend we met at the mall.
Even though you have like all of the basics of information, if some man was like, so I see that you identify as not religious but spiritual, I'd be like, ew, stop, what the fuck, like, why'd you read me like a book? Ew. But I think Instagram's a little different because if you're already following each other on Instagram, then you can be like, oh yeah, I saw that you posted that band.
Yeah,
that's fine. But yeah, if you don't follow each other on Instagram, don't mention it, don't bring it up, don't look like a fucking stalker.
Yeah. What about LinkedIn? This is the LinkedIn question.
Oh no, not LinkedIn.
Like, so first off, my personal hot take and shit talk for everybody is that people on TikTok do not understand LinkedIn and what it's for. I think it just goes to show how young the fucking audience is. But I don't know what it's for. Disregard. Okay. Mailbag. He was visibly upset that I mentioned looking him up on LinkedIn. Hi, Charlotte and guest. Well, it's Annabelle today, who's not a guest. I, 31 female, met a guy on Hinge. We set up a date a week or so back. Our back and forth was brief. I always prefer it this way. I prefer to meet people in person because messaging and apps and how I feel about them can change so much. But it was all normal. No red flags, nothing weird. So something I do in tandem with messaging before I agree to the date officially is look up the guy to make sure everything checks out. It's pretty simple. Just punching first name, job title or company, and city into Google will generally bring up a LinkedIn page, which gives a last name that you can use for other social media or searches. I'm not looking for anything weird, more so just making sure everything lines up with what's on the app, they're actually single, and they haven't been arrested for something crazy. Aside from that, I don't care. I like them on the app for a reason. At this point, I thought it was a normal thing to do in the digital age we're in, because I've been on dates where guys have mentioned looking me up on LinkedIn very quickly. Note I work in sales, as have some of the guys I've dated. Using LinkedIn is extremely common and part of your day-to-day there. So while I don't go into dates saying, hey, I looked you up, sometimes it just casually comes up. Anyway, when I looked him up, his LinkedIn showed he was in an industry I wasn't as familiar with, but it seemed kind of cool. It also seemed like he regularly used LinkedIn because he had posts from the prior week. On the date, things were going well, and about an hour in, we started talking about hobbies and passions. I said something like, even calling out like the potential awkwardness of this, don't hate me, but I looked you up on LinkedIn and saw you worked in industry. What's that like? It seems kind of cool. He sort of flinched and replied back, you did what? And I replied that I use LinkedIn a lot for work, so it's sort of second nature, and joked that I just make sure I'm not going on a date with an axe murderer. He said something like, that's kind of weird, and was a lot more curt for the rest of the date. Sent a thank you text after the fact, but haven't heard from him since. I haven't had this reaction before, but just the other day, I saw a TikTok where a woman mentioned using LinkedIn to stalk her dates, just like how I do pretty much, just to see her flooded with comments telling her no and accusing her of trying to find out how much money the guy makes. Some encouraged her to use Facebook instead. I don't know anyone who doesn't do this, even for non-dating purposes. I have friends who do this before meeting up with someone from Facebook Marketplace, for example. So is this more of a faux pas than I thought? I thought this was more normalized.
I think it's normal, but I'm also a little off. I would definitely like lean into that.
Yeah.
If I like let it slip, I'd be like, oh yeah, by the way, I did stalk you a little bit.
So I have had this woman's exact experience. I have walked into dates and had dudes be like, yeah, look, he's like, I hope you don't mind. I looked you up on LinkedIn. Like, you probably saw I was like in sales, because literally you do that in sales.
Can't LinkedIn see if like you can see who's looked at your profile?
You can, but you can turn off that feature. And if you have LinkedIn Premium, like a lot of salespeople do, you can do it stealthily. Or people just are very brave. Like if you're a LinkedIn person, like there's a difference between having LinkedIn and being a LinkedIn person. People like think it is a good thing that people can see you creeping on them. Like LinkedIn's a fun place. I don't know.
Right.
Like,
that's so funny. That's so, yeah, unless he's, shit, damn, maybe he has something weird and shady to hide. It's not like you ask for his, like, criminal record, or you're like,
no.
Oh, yeah, I did look up your criminal record.
Well, I do wonder about the industry they're in, because, like, I think if someone's a salesperson, that is normal. Like, it is, like, it's, like, second nature. If you sit at a desk and you have a LinkedIn open for work, and it's a tool that you can use, and you can literally, like, put in information, and like why wouldn't you look up your dates? Like,
yeah,
I remember when I was like working in sales at the office, like someone would have a date, they'd be like, oh, look her up, and they'd pull up the LinkedIn, like, oh, and people would be like, oh, she's hot, like if it was a guy looking up a girl.
You guys would pull up LinkedIn before anything else?
Well, because it's like the social media you can pull up at the workplace. It's not too weird. Like you're not going to see bikini pictures on someone's LinkedIn. But like, yeah, but like I think it's a normal thing to look at. Like there's also just this like sentiment I feel like on TikTok, and I think it must be people that just aren't working corporate jobs. Because everyone has a different relationship with their workplace, where it's like this idea that asking somebody what they do for work or just asking about their job is somehow like trying to pry into how much money someone makes.
Yes.
Like, are there people who kind of do that? I'm sure there are. But like, why would I not ask about a place you go to for 8 hours of your day? A lot of times people are passionate about what they do. Like they got an education for it. Like there are some people where it's like they have a good job and it's a place they go for 8 hours and it puts money in the bank and they don't want to talk about work outside of that. But there's other people where it's like they started their own business, or they're an engineer who did Engineer Without Borders or something like that. Like, so that's why people ask about that. I think like there is like sort of more like normalized stalking on LinkedIn. She didn't like say the industry, but like, if you're going like a salesperson, like I remember because I was sales, and even in marketing, I still like look people up. But like we would use that when I was selling, we were selling into the construction industry,
right,
where they don't usually use it as much. And they would be like the people we would call, because we would use LinkedIn a lot of times to get around email being blocked and stuff, or like get around like email filters. Like LinkedIn, it would just go to the top, and it would have people's like information. Like a lot of the people we would call would be like kind of weirded out by us messaging them on LinkedIn because they thought it was like more personal, or they would be weirded out by us like getting phone numbers from it. Like, so I think every industry looks at LinkedIn a bit differently.
Okay.
Yeah.
I have a question.
Yes.
Is it different for a girl to look up a guy than it is for a guy to look up a girl? Like in that same situation, if a man was like, oh yeah, by the way, I looked you up on LinkedIn and I saw that you did blah, blah, blah. Like if you're on a date with a man and he says that, are you getting a little more red flags than if it was the other way around?
I don't like so I think
it's a little weirder when men do this stuff.
Well, I think like,
I'm allowed to.
So I think where it comes from is like I think men do it less because like at the end of the day, as much as I hate double standards, like one double standard that always exists is that men don't walk into a date terrified, like with the thought in the back of their mind that the person sitting across from me is capable of murdering me. Women do.
Yes. Yeah. A man with a hyperfixation is like very scary.
Yeah. Like, and it's even like that's something like I think men would acknowledge it too. Like the woman sitting across from you cannot physically overpower you.
Right.
She can't say the same about you.
Right.
And so there is more this feeling of like, make sure he's not an axe murderer. And like, I think, of course, there's like women fascination with true crime. I think men are just less interested. It's like they have the pictures. That's what they need. Like, I think they'd be more inclined to look at Instagram than LinkedIn. Because because women, I think there's more of that sense of safety. Like there's more accurate information. Oh, he lives in this city. Oh, here's a place of business that he works. So someone had to hire him. Like people don't hire crazy people. So I think like it's like, I think it would be like weirder, but also like this might sound like a thing for me, but like I was like weirdly like flattered by it because it was like, oh cool, like a guy who like respects my career. Like I don't know. Like with all the talk out there where it's like, oh like just be hot. Like it was kind of like, oh cool, like a guy who cares. Like who's impressed, maybe is impressed by this. Like
for sure.
So I was kind of, and it was also just something I was used to, so I wasn't that weirded out by it. Like I also appreciated like them being candid about it versus like hiding it, like them just being like, oh, you know what, like looked you up on LinkedIn, like it's just what I do, sales, you get it, right? Like, and they were like chill about it. We were in a public place, like it wasn't this weird thing like I looked you up on LinkedIn. Like it really depends how you frame it. I think there's also just the messaging around freaking TikTok about like how it's like looking someone up on LinkedIn is like this, like it means you're looking to look up someone's salary. There's this girl, I'm friends with her on TikTok who I probably posted, like I don't know if maybe this is a TikTok she's talking about. Tess, love Tess, shout out Tess, who's like in LA, like a film person, like she's very well educated, she has a job in like the film industry, she is on LinkedIn, and she talked about like going on a date, and very anecdotally she's like, yeah, I looked him up on LinkedIn, and her comment section, like it was like a viral video, and like the LinkedIn part was like an afterthought basically, but people were like, why'd you look him up on LinkedIn, he's gonna think you're like looking up how much money he makes. And then she was like, they were like, I think there were comments telling her to go look at like Facebook instead, but like kind of the thought, like you could just tell the people that wrote these comments didn't use, like the way people were writing this to her was basically under this assumption that like she wasn't on LinkedIn, like it was like this big mythical website for big famous CEOs, right? Like, girl, what are you doing? Like he's gonna think you're looking up how much money he makes. It's like, if you're on LinkedIn, you have it up on your computer screen at work, like why wouldn't you look it up? Like anyone with a corporate, like this girl had a corporate job. Maybe it's also because like people think if you're on TikTok and have a following and making TikToks that your job is just TikTok. Like I've had people.
Oh my god, for real.
I don't know, but like you could just tell by these comments, like
they think you're just like a sugar baby, like as a woman.
Oh my god, like so it was like anecdote. Had like something where, like it's a stupid fucking one corner of TikTok. I used to fight for this concept of like hypergamy a bunch, and like I'm just like, yeah, like I was like, my values around like guys dating and money and stuff is like my personal philosophy was always, if he's in the same room I'm in, he's probably doing okay. Like I never thought about how much money a guy makes. I've never asked, because I'm confident that the person sitting across from me does well because I am successful, the people around me are successful.
Yes.
Like people, like you wouldn't date a guy who works at Burger King. I don't, like, there are no Burger King cashiers in the rooms that I'm in. Like everything I go to in life is a result of, there's a barrier to entry in the form of having to pay to be there, or like having to be able to afford to live there. And because of that, the people that are around me had to do the same thing, means they're probably somewhat successful. So I've never thought about that kind of thing. And like, I think that's a solid philosophy. Like, you know, like if you want to be around successful people, go be successful yourself. Otherwise you have to be this weird social climber who's like, how much money do you make? But I put that video and I thought it was a good philosophy, and someone's like, you're a clear example of hypergamy because of what you do. I'm like, what the fuck are you talking about? They're like, well, you're a TikTok influencer and you wouldn't be able to do that if you weren't attractive. So that is an example of hypergamy and like women attractive getting ahead. I'm like, do you think this house is not purchased on TikTok?
Literally.
This is like my company. This is like my company IPO'd and I had a bunch of shares in it that I got when I was like 22, and this company blew up and now I have a nice house and I've done well. Like, it's like, this is not TikTok money. Like, no.
Yeah.
Like you think my job is TikTok? I'm a fucking analyst. What do I walk into work? I'm hot. Do stuff. Give me stuff. Give me money. No.
Crazy.
No, I make peanuts on TikTok. But like, I just went on that rant because that was relatively recent. I was annoyed.
Yeah.
But like, yeah, like I think there's, like, that's the other thing about TikTok too, is like everybody on there has like such different life experiences that if you solicit advice from TikTok, like you never know where it's coming from. Like people have such like different, like if you go to somebody and ask for advice, like generally speaking, they've dealt with a similar person as you, or like someone that's lived a similar life, like lives a similar lifestyle. Like they get it. They've probably dated somebody who's 5 to 10% away from you.
Yeah.
But like if you go to weird corners of the internet, you never know where they are. You never know how old they are. You never know like what their upbringing is. Like just like where it's like people like that don't understand LinkedIn think it's like this mythical website for magic CEOs. It's like no.
Right, but that's so much. Like it's just such a huge population of people specifically in Austin. Everybody in Austin.
Yeah.
On LinkedIn. So yeah. So it's really
Yeah.
all in all, that is to say it's not weird really at all, and he was honestly probably overreacting. Like that's kind of a...
He's probably just in an industry that doesn't use it. And I would just tell this woman, like, you know, the industries that you know are comfortable with LinkedIn, like do what you're doing, and if not, like maybe I would keep it, like think of it just like, you know, how you go back and look at someone's Facebook and see if they, you know, what they wore for prom. Like just treat it like that. Like that, if it wasn't on the profile, don't bring it up.
True.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. You can always also, I know I'll kill two birds with one stone right now. You can also always invest in a monthly subscription to a site like publicdatacheck.com. That can tell you anything you need to know about someone. Like obviously don't use it to make decisions for employment or for, you know, anything serious, and you're not allowed to use it that way. But if you're trying to just do basic checks on somebody, you're looking for things like criminal records, you want to make sure someone is not an axe murderer, be safe when you're dating.
Yep. Whenever I need that, I always send Charlotte my
information.
I send the full name, the birth date if I can find it.
You can find a birthday,
location that they were born if you can find it,
cities they're affiliated with. And
so
then
I send all that to you, and you can punch it in and get their
public data check. Yep.
And then I send their birth date and their birth time to my friend Amelia so she can run their birth chart.
And you know. I would put this boot in your face if you ever did that to me.
So I can get the whole birth chart, sun, moon, rising sign. Let's see what's up.
So yeah, someone also commented on the video like, I bet you don't believe in astrology either. I was like, oh, let's fucking go.
Oh my God.
I would piss off too many people. So many people are like, are you a Virgo? I'm like, no, I'm a sarcophagus. Astrology's dumb. Sorry, this is at the end of the episode. If you got this far, you like me enough to disagree with me.
Boo.
Woo. All right. I think we should call this one.
Okay.
Anything else you want to say before we're out?
Astrology is real. Believe in it.
False.
Bye.
Bye.